Hey, again, thanks for watching. This is going to be my second video here. First video that we did was CCing the combustion chambers on these cast iron J heads for the small block Mopar. So now we're moving on. I'm going to do a little bit of porting work, a little relief work. I don't want to call it necessarily porting, but a little relief work on these heads to kind of hopefully free up some flow. Not opening the ports really. All I'm doing is I'm just creating hopefully a little bit more flow. This is really, I guess, going to be more of a port matching or gasket matching process, and it is exactly what it sounds like. You take an old gasket, as you see I have here, you put it on the head, you mark it, and then you cut it to match the gasket. A little known fact is that intake manifolds like I've got here, this is the air gap. Most people don't know that these ports are made and on some manifolds intentionally narrower, smaller, so that when you put them on your car you'll be able to open them up to the desired size. If you just leave them the way they are, then you're probably losing out on some flow. So it's probably a good idea to at least do some matching between your heads and your intake manifold. You're probably going to pick up a little bit of power, well, at least hopefully. So just to kind of show you what I'm talking about a little bit here, if you look at these two heads, you may or may not be able to notice a big difference between these ports and these ports. These have already been clearanced, opened up a little bit. If I kind of get a little more angle on it, you can kind of see this one's got a little more ramp to it, and this one's a little sharper. And to make a real clear illustration of that, I'm going to go ahead and we'll put the old gasket right on here, and you can kind of see how much material, there's a lot of material left there to be taken off. So when I flip this gasket up now up here, and you can see that there is not a whole lot left there. We've done a pretty good job of kind of marking it and clearancing it out. It's important when you do this that you not only do the head, but you do the intake manifold again. Just make sure that you get this all together. You don't want this mismatched. When you're doing the clearancing, do not go too far in, because you're not porting the head. You're just making the flow. You're just matching that gasket. So if you go too far in, you start changing the CCs of these runners, and unless you have a flow bench or you plan on CCing all the runners to ensure that they're all the same volume, just be very careful, because you'll end up hurting. It's not a case of, taking a bunch out is going to help you. It just gets more in there, because then they all have to be equal all the way across. So again, when you do this, only about a ½ an inch deep, and all you're just doing is just kind of smoothing these entrance out, so that again the air just nice and flow. Just think about how that air flows in there. As far as what tools I'm using, I have this air grinder here. It's got a carbide bit on it. This has worked really well so far. Also, what's done most of the work is these grinding stones, and they work pretty good. Again, I got these at the auto parts store or hardware store, and they do a pretty good job, again, just for iron. And then for some finishing work, if you like to use these, it's a shaft and the rolling paper. That gets you a little bit closer. But it's not really something that's 100% necessary, because you're not looking for a mirror polish on these intakes. You want that rough surface for proper atomization of the fuel and air mixture. A little trick though, if you have one of these or even a longer throw here, so you're going to have an issue with this wanting to twist. If it gets a bite, it's going to want to jerk out of your hand. And something you can do is you just take a towel or a rag and you wrap it around the base of the shaft here. And then that way, when you're working with it and it's in your grinder, you have kind of another hand. You can actually just kind of keep it kind of loose, but it's going to give you a little bit more support as you're working with this. So to give you an idea, again, all you're really looking to do with this is you're just looking to kind of just at about this angle. You really don't need a whole lot, and just kind of smooth it out here. And that's pretty much it. I don't think it's necessary to walk through and show you guys exactly what it is. I think you probably can figure that out. So that's the intake side. You can do the same to the exhaust side. I'm not a big fan of that because you can create exhaust leaks. It's not really necessary. What I do, by the way, to mark it, I use a Sharpie. As you can see here, just kind of squiggle it on. Then I lay that gasket over top and use the a little dental pick like this, or a ice pick or something, and then what I'll do is I'll score it. When I lay the gasket on there, I'll score it, you know, like this. Score it that way, so you can really kind of get a clear indication of what you need to do. So that's, again, that's the intake side. So that's all the work I'm going to do there. And when it comes to the actual ports themselves, there is a little bit of work that I've done in here. I'll just kind of see if we can get in here. I have just taken a little bit of this real estate out around here just to kind of help smooth it out, and then the same thing on the exhaust side, just kind of clean this up. Again, you're just trying to think about how that air flows through there, so you just kind of want to clean it up, take a little bit out so it's a little smooth. And the next thing is, if you just look in here, you can see how it used to be. There's again a big chunk there that's just sticking out in the airflow. And then this one, it's not quite as bad on the exhaust side, but still you can see it there. So again, did not do a whole lot here, because you really got to be careful. You're not taking too much out of here. You really can screw up your flow numbers, end up really hurting yourself more than helping. The next thing is, when we're talking about this head right here is about to be reassembled, so the next thing we want to talk about is these valves. This is the valve I used in the earlier demonstration where we CC'd the head, and I've stuck it in the drill press, or you could probably use a corded or cordless drill, get it locked in, and just use a little bit of sandpaper, a little polishing, metal polishing compound, and just kind of shine it up a little bit. It looks pretty, and also the shiny smooth surface stops anything from being able to stick to it, because there's nothing for it to grab onto. Now when you go to reassemble, another little trick that I use, again, this is just some metal polish. I put it on the sealing surface of the valve, and then I put the valve back in the head, and then I just spin it from the bottom. And this is something that, you know, these are the little things that you can do that'll really kind of help out. If these are like some used heads like mine are, they're not going to go to the machine shop to get all new seats put in it, so you can kind of work with what you have. So you just put it on here, you spin it around, you know, do that for a few minutes, clean it off, look at it, and just keep repeating until you see that there's a nice even surface here on the valve, and then also your sealing surface around here is nice and smooth, or at least, you know, at least polish. You can kind of get a good idea that it's got a good seal. There's no real gaps in it. So that's it. We'll do another video later for some other work that I've done on these heads, but that's as far as I go with porting or opening ports or matching ports. I think that's really all that I'm going to do in the garage. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time CCing and flowing, you know, doing flow work on each chamber. So that's what I got. Please leave any comments or questions, and hopefully you enjoyed the video. Thanks.